Here at Unlock, you see employment as one of the central planks helping offenders to reintegrate in society and avoid being reconvicted. And that's a view shared by many others, I think you'll agree. What's Unlock's particular point of view on what does stand in the way of offenders getting into work?
The biggest problem we have is prejudice in employment. It's about people not understanding the ex-offender community. So the employer feels, I don't understand this person, I'm not sure about it, so therefore I won't employ him. It's easier not to employ. The main problem we have is things like the CRB check, where people don't know when they're going for job interviews whether they declare a conviction, because if they get the job by telling lies, then they've obtained a job by deception. And it's really hard when we say to our people, well, go in there and tell the truth. And they know that if they tell the truth, they're not going to get employed, where if they don't tell the truth. So basically, the system is geared up for our people, if they want to be honest and law-abiding citizens, they first off have to start by lying about their past. So we gear people up for dishonesty. Also is the thing that the CRB and the ISA, all those sort of things, it's about checking from the past. Now, when a person goes to prison, they go to prison and they've served their sentence. But the sentence doesn't end when they get out. And it's very rich when we hear the politicians saying, you know, we want them to be law-abiding citizens and we want them to be in employment and we don't want them to be on the dole. And I totally agree with this government. But then let them enter into the workplace. Allow them to do it. Don't put barriers up there to stop them doing it. And unfortunately, with legislation, a lot of this has been inherited because we got, you know, it's quite easily to blame this government for everything. And I've defended Ken Clarke on numerous occasions because I think one of the few politicians with a backbone that's actually spoke the truth. They've inherited a debt, they inherited high unemployment, but the thing is now, what you're going to do about it? How are you going to remove these barriers? And the only way to get people back into employment, to make them taxpayers rather than burden on taxpayers, is to look at the Discrimination Act. They did it with race, they did it with sex, they did it with age. You know, you can't discriminate, but still to this very day, we're the last group that can be discriminated against because of previous criminal record, even though you might have been 20 years down the line and that might be a dead old thing. You know, that you can still be used as discrimination. So we've really got to look at the Discrimination Act, that it's unlawful to discriminate someone who has served a prison sentence and wishes to leave crime behind.
So what you're saying then is that the issue is really systemic, it's really quite deep-rooted. It's not so much about individual specific barriers, but something that's really quite deep-rooted.
You're absolutely right on that. And it goes back to, I mean, even down to the thing of what is going through Parliament, you know, the votes for prisoners. There's a lot of rules going back to 1874 and stuff like that. And unfortunately, in the country, in the employment sector, we've not evolved from a leopard never changes its spots, which is quite sad really, because when people have worked with reformed offenders and they've employed reformed offenders, they've actually found, and there are numerous companies that will come forward and say this, that they've been the best employers because they know how hard it is to get a job. They normally stay with the employer that's given their first chance. They've turned out to be, if there is a fiddle going on in the company, they're the first to spot it and they stop it because they don't want to be accused of it. So when you employ an ex-offender, not only are you getting someone who's going to be loyal to you, going to turn up and work hard, you're also getting a free security guard, really, because they don't want it pointed at them. So, you know, what it is people, and it's about this secretive society. The public don't know what goes on in prison. They only know what they read about it in the red top newspapers, which is absolute fabrication. You might as well read the Beano. What they don't know is the hard work the staff put into rehabilitating people in prison. If prison was to work, then rehabilitation must occur. And if rehabilitation must occur, then part of that rehabilitation is reintegration back into society. And it's also, if you like, the public saying, we have a responsibility as a society to support this person in their rehabilitation into employment.
How's the issue of offenders and employment changed over Unlock's lifetime since it was founded in 1998? Have things improved or have they got worse? What's happened in recent years?
It's stagnated for quite some time. It started getting slowly better. I think the previous government was in power for a long time, and it came in on this ticket of tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime. Well, it was tough on crime, but it was never tough on the causes of crime. It ran a million miles away from that. It's got better since we've had a coalition government, and why I say it's got better, because you have got the Conservative government that represents business-minded people, and so they realise that banging people up is not cost-effective. Also, having people commit crime on the streets is not cost-effective. So let's get something that makes them working, so we can claim tax off them, so we ain't got the dull addiction thing, which the previous government was quite happy to have. So you've got this thing now where, if you like, the coalition is very good because it ain't just one party doing what they want to do, and that's why I like coalitions. I don't like one party in power, because they watch each other. And where you've got the die-hard, yeah, we're going to do this, you've got the voice behind saying, slow down a minute, that could cause that. So I think this has got a good balance. Though it might sound very weird I'm saying this because we're in where we've got riots on the streets and all that sort of thing. But, you know, let's talk about, it's quite rich when another party says, you know, what you're going to do about it, when they're the ones who created it. So when you look at it and you say, well, what are they doing about it? One, they're out on the streets, they're actually talking to people. Secondly, they are looking at new ways of doing things. Employers now are realising, well, you know, the guy who was a reformed offender is not coming in to rob me, he actually wants a job. So every time I do a conference, every time other people work with our people and we get them job ready, and I'm not talking about some charities that get, if they get paid for 13 weeks, go, yeah, they're job ready, and they work for 13 weeks, on the 14th week they give them the sack. I'm talking about, with our thing like the Diamond Project, if you're going in there to train people and your training is that good, then you employ them. If your training is that good, you employ them. Because what I always say to people, if you don't employ them yourself, how can you expect other people to employ them? Don't make a mockery of it. And that is why I'm quite scathing on charities that purport to represent reformed offenders. And when I look through their books, they don't employ them themselves, or they employ them on a very low scale. And what is very disheartening for the reformed offender is we've got them with PhDs and they have to work in McDonald's. Well, you know, if you've got a PhD, I think society should say, you've done your time, you've done the crime, you've done your time, now let's see what you could do, and they should be allowed to reach their full potential. And I think giving this government a bit more time, because don't forget it's still in its teething stage, and it's going to get a load of things wrong, and don't worry, I'll be there to tell them when they get it wrong. But they're also getting some things, they're tackling some huge things, and I think they will, when they get over the knee-jerk reaction and worrying about what the press say, and start being a strong government and saying, right, now this is what we say, then you'll see a change. And I think you're going to see quite good changes. I think they're very positive, because they're actually listening to people, listening to the youth. I think they've got to the stage where they know, where the youth have said, you know, if you want respect from us, then show us some and listen to us. And I think this government is a listening thing. And I think with Cameron, with the broken society, yeah, it was broken a lot of years before you come to power, David. You know, and this is why it's so important now that we talk to our politicians and say there's got to be a different way. We can't have the same can of beans being kept re-wrapped every time. We've got to have a new product. And I think it's possible it's there. And this change is happening.